This video I want to take a look at something that obviously is of great concern to people who contact me from time to time. That is the whole question of solicitors' fees and solicitors' costs. People look for a quotation a lot, and that's understandable because obviously they want to know exactly what they're getting into. But it can be very difficult to give a precise figure or indeed even an estimate on some occasions. And in this video I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you the difficulties too. Firstly, if somebody wants a consultation and they're coming into the office, then I can be very sure that I'm going to charge them a fixed fee, and it's a consultation fee, and the consultation will last for an hour at max, and sometimes that won't even be necessary because you could do it in less time depending on the actual issue. So if it's an employment situation, for example, somebody could come in and, within 10 or 15 minutes it's quite clear that they either have a case or they haven't got a case. And the consultation fee clearly will cover that, and it's going to be maybe a 10-minute, 15-minute job, or it could be up to a maximum of 1 hour. But the bottom line is I can tell at the outset what the fee is going to be before somebody comes. If somebody then is going to buy a house or perhaps lease a commercial premises or something, I have a fair idea what's involved in that as well, and I can give a quotation for the house, purchase or sale, and it could range from, for example, 1,500, well, we'll say 1,500 quid plus VAT for a conveyancing fee. We'll take that as an example. And I have a fair idea that there's a beginning, middle and an end to the transaction. I know how long it'll take and I know the work that's involved, so I can give a fair degree of accuracy about the quotations I'm going to give there. However, if somebody comes to me then in relation to a family law matter, and there's two different scenarios that could arise. One is a situation where the two parties may have decided that the relationship is well and truly over and they're going their separate ways. They've got their own new partners and they're going to move on with their life, and they have agreed that they want a divorce. That's fine, and the more agreement that there is in relation to the divorce and in relation to all of the issues in the divorce, the easier it is to forecast the work involved, the time involved, and basically then the cost. So that's one scenario. Another scenario is where the relationship is broken down and there's no agreement or very little agreement about the various issues, like if there's children, custody, access, maintenance, and then if there's property, if there's a family home, and perhaps a mortgage and perhaps negative equity. These things obviously are huge factors in the ultimate divorce that's going to be granted, and they have to be agreed. Now clearly if there's no agreement, then we're looking at a bit of a battle, a bit of a time, certainly a time investment from me, from the professional team as it were, the solicitor and perhaps barrister in advising, and the parties themselves. And that could go on and on and on for ages, depending on how bitter the parties are and how embittered the dispute is and how intractable the particular problems are. So in that situation, when somebody comes in for a quotation, it's very, very difficult to be accurate because it could go on and on, quite frankly, and it's up to the parties themselves to shorten that if they can by agreeing as much as they can. But in the heat of a situation where a relationship is broken down, then it can be very, very difficult to get agreement. So that's another situation. A criminal matter then, again, it depends. You could have a road traffic situation, you could have a straightforward theft situation, and you're going to court, and it's going to the district court, and you are assuming that you're going to go to the district court on one occasion and then another occasion, and depending on the evidence and depending on the disclosure and depending on the statements and depending on the case against your client, you'll be able to advise them on whether the case is going to be worth fighting or not. Clearly, if it's worth fighting, well then there's going to be a hearing. So that's a third day at least. So there's going to be preparation for that, there's going to be time involved in running the hearing or running the trial of the matter, and that's going to cost more money than if the situation is a fairly straightforward one, where the person might take a view that, look, I was just caught speeding, or I was caught doing whatever. The allegation is fairly strong against me, the evidence is fairly strong against me, and the best thing to do is just to take a plea and maybe get the benefit of the Probation Act. Again, this all comes down to time. So you're going to be in court there twice. Firstly, to get disclosure, and secondly, to do a plea, and a plea in mitigation if the client is pleading guilty. So this takes clearly less time than going to court for a third time and running a trial and perhaps calling witnesses and cross-examining and direct examining and a whole lot. Then if you take the scenario of a personal injury situation, it can be straightforward enough if the other party is agreeable to the Injuries Board assessment. So essentially, if you come into me with a personal injury claim, then the situation is you make an application to the Injuries Board, and the Injuries Board will assess your injuries, and if you're satisfied with their assessment, and if the other party is satisfied with the assessment, well then there'll be an order to pay made, and that'll be the end of the matter. However, if you're satisfied with the assessment or not, or the other party is not satisfied with the assessment, what will happen then will be the Injuries Board will simply issue a letter of authorisation for you to commence legal proceedings. So now you're off to either the District Court, the Circuit Court or the High Court to commence a personal injuries action against somebody. So you're looking at more time there, clearly. You're looking at more costs, because obviously you have to go to court. Now, depending again on whether the case is going to settle or not, you could be into significant costs, depending on how often you have to go to court, whether there is discovery required, whether there are medical reports or extra medical reports required, whether there are expert reports required, and so on and so forth. So when somebody comes to me, just to go on then, actually have a look at probate situation. Somebody comes in and they look for a quotation for a will. I can give a quotation for a will, no problem, provided it's a straightforward will. But if it's a will involving a trust for minor children, and there are significant assets involved, and there are significant tax implications involved, and specialist tax advice may be required, well, in that situation, the bog standard will is completely inappropriate, and the fee that I might quote for a bog standard will not be sufficient at all, or will not be accurate in relation to a trust requiring specialist tax advice, and perhaps more time, certainly more time, and significant drafting. The exact same thing or same implications arise in extracting a grant of probate. Sometimes somebody will come into me and they'll have a will, and it'll be a small estate, and they'll wonder what they have to do, and they don't know what to do. And if it's a small estate, there may well be no need whatsoever for them to extract a grant of probate, in which case, because it's a small estate, there may be no need for me at all. On the other hand, if there's property, real estate involved, there will be a requirement to extract a grant of probate, and in that situation, depending on the value of the property and so on, and depending on the value of the estate, you're looking at more money. You're looking at a grant of probate having to be extracted from the probate office. So I hope you can see that in all of these different circumstances, it is very, very difficult to be precise a lot of the time in relation to what the legal fees or solicitors' fees are going to be. One of the reasons that solicitors like conveyances and residential conveyancing, and one of the reasons certainly I like it, is because there's a beginning, a middle and an end, and you can forecast with a fair degree of certainty what work is going to be involved and the cost, and therefore you can be sure enough in telling your client that it's going to cost X and here are the outlays, and that's it. It's going to take 6 or 8 weeks, all things going fairly well, but otherwise all bets are off. Essentially it comes down to the time involved for the solicitor, for the legal team, whether there's specialist reports involved, whether it goes to court, whether it's a protracted litigation situation or a relatively straightforward agreement and settlement. All of these things will depend or will influence clearly what the solicitor's fee will be. So the next time that you ask a solicitor for a quotation about anything that you need a hand with, then bear in mind what I've discussed in this video here today, because when the solicitor says it depends, it really does depend, and essentially it comes down to the amount of time involved for the solicitor, the complexity of the issue, and whether you're going to court once or twice or 3 times or a few times. I hope you find this video useful. I hope it is helpful in terms of explaining to you why it is actually difficult, genuinely difficult, for a solicitor to give you an accurate quotation in respect of any bit of work that you might need or any legal advice that you might require. So if you do find it useful, you might give it a thumbs up down below and subscribe to my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel, I have a lot of videos on it there now, and I deal with all aspects of law in Ireland. I deal with employment law, I deal with running a small business, and there's quite a lot of videos there, and I think they're fairly useful. So subscribe to my channel and give me the thumbs up. Thanks a lot.